Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about retro video games. Today I'm reviewing a horror game that's more psychological than outright scary. It's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Yeah, I don't have the box for this. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream was developed by the Dreamers Guild and released for DOS and Mac in 1995. It's a point-and-click adventure game based on a short story by Harlan Ellison, which shares the same name. In the story, a Cold War between the US, Russia, and China evolved not into nuclear war, but the creation of supercomputers to run the war. One of these, known as Allied Master Computer, or AM for short, becomes self-aware and kills off all of humanity except for 5 people. Why? Well, he hates them.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live.
As the game opens, AM has spent the last 109 years torturing these 5 humans and has created a new game for them to play, which will prey upon their weaknesses. You have to take each of them through a scenario that will test them and attempt to outwit AM. The 5 characters are quite different. They range from Nimdok, who worked with Dr. Mengele at Auschwitz and needs to atone for it, to Ellen, an engineer who hasn't done anything wrong but must face her fears about something that happened to her in the past. She's the only really sympathetic character.
So sad.
Then there's Ted, who's a pretentious douche, but not really evil or anything.
So many women have called me their knight in shining armor. Never Ellen.
The gameplay consists of the usual point-and-click adventure mechanics for the 90s. You're given 8 different commands: basic, like look at, talk to, use, and the slightly more unique swallow. Puzzles are mainly of the inventory sort, using the right inventory objects on the right things at the right time. There's also a fair bit of dialogue in talking to secondary characters.
This is the grave of Murphy, one of my old commandos, killed in the war.
The game incorporates a morality mechanic too. If you make good decisions, the character portrait in the bottom left turns brighter green, while evil decisions will make it darker.
I've learned to be compassionate to those who suffer.
However, it's never made very clear how the morality meter affects the game. The gameplay is generally pretty engaging and done alright, at least in the beginning. The puzzles aren't easy, but they make sense when you think about them in a certain way. I found one spot in the game where I seemed to do things in the wrong order and got stuck, so I'd suggest multiple saves and saving often. The game really shines in 2 areas, and that's the writing and the voice acting. Harlan Ellison not only co-designed the game, but also provided the voice for AM, and I think he does a remarkable job. I really believed he hated those meatbags. AM's is the voice we hear most and really sets the tone for the game. Every word just oozes with sadism, and his voice betrays that this genius supercomputer is rather unhinged.
I asked you to do, since you now identify with your victims. I suppose it's only right that I let you experience their tortures too.
The rest of the voice actors do a fine job as well, and give a good sense of their own characters.
I've never seen anything like this in all the years Am's toyed with us.
The writing is top-notch, especially for a video game. It is also very, very bleak. This is a mature game, but not in the sense that it presents a whole bunch of gratuitous sex and violence, so we all know how edgy it is. Instead, it covers dark and disturbing psychological themes about human suffering, guilt, paranoia, fear, and regret. There's also a good dose of existential dread that our robot overlords will one day rise up and kill us all. Or worse. AM sets up a scenario for each of his 5 victims that plays on their weaknesses. As the player, you can either give in to these weaknesses or overcome them, causing AM to rethink his approach. Take, for example, Benny. Benny was a military officer who did some terrible things to the men who served under him in order to save himself, and it's implied that cannibalism is one of them. As a result, Benny is always hungry. Throughout Benny's scenario, you can learn to demonstrate compassion or give in to his baser instincts. In Ellen's story, she has to overcome fear as opposed to atone for some wrong she's done. I'm of two minds with this story. First, spoiler alert, the fears that she needs to overcome are related to her being raped in the past. It sucks that this is the story chosen for the single female character in the game, one where she has to overcome something done to her, while the other characters in the story are dealing with choices they've made for themselves. However, it is handled pretty well in the game. Ellen's story is also strong in other ways. She had been a promising engineer before the world ended, and her scenario really plays off that.
This looks like a programming area. Home at last.
The puzzles we're faced with are engineering and electrical type problems, so I enjoy that the story and game mechanics married very well together in her scenario. Ellen's story also resonates because no matter what's going on inside or what she's afraid of, she never shows any weakness and always puts on a chipper demeanor. This is something she surely learned through years of studying and working in a typically male-dominated field. So I think that she's a very well-written character, even if I don't really like the original concept. Though the game is very well written, I do find it kind of falls apart in the final segment. It's best when it's a character study, and the ending, which is a kind of symbolic final battle against Am, doesn't really come together, and gameplay-wise, it takes a step backward with some really nonsensical puzzle solutions. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is not your typical horror game. There are no jump scares or gore. It's all just very grim, bleak material and a number of morally corrupt characters. Other than Ellen, no one is sympathetic, but the stories are well written and will make you think. It will also reinforce any beliefs you have about technology being out to get us all. You're not going to find a happy ending here, no matter how well you play the game, though the good ending is slightly less depressing than the others. Overall, I did enjoy this game. Though mechanically it's a little bit hit or miss, I find that it's very well written, and I recommend it to anyone who likes their games a little on the dark side. Or, if you want to skip the obtuse puzzle solving, you could just read the short story that it's based on.
Who among you shall go next?
Thanks for watching, everyone, and if you're looking for more spooky videos, check out my review of Phantasmagoria or my Let's Play of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. I'll see you next time.